Introducing the AMREIN Inspired Tiles Web Part. This is for SharePoint 2010, 2013, both on premises, and also SharePoint Online. It's created as a sandbox solution. 98% of the application is in JavaScript using the SharePoint JavaScript object model and jQuery and some other plugins. So let's go ahead and play around with it and see what it can do. You can see here that it's heavily inspired by the SharePoint Promoted Links web part for SharePoint 2013. It uses some pretty cool little tiles in a very metro kind of style. We can see here that some of the tiles have a title or label and also a description. And there's also a background image of a silhouette of a person or also some Star Wars tiles. Some of these tiles also have a hyperlink associated with them so that when you click on the tile, it links out. So for instance, that one linked out to Microsoft. There's a setting right now in the web part turned on that shows a little arrow on the top right when the tile has a hyperlink associated with it. So you can see that these tiles, if I click on them, don't do anything because they have no arrow right now. Also, one of the coolest features about this is that it's filterable. So each of these tiles has a filter or category associated with it, and the categories are aggregated and added at the top as buttons, and you can filter through them. So let's go ahead and take a look at the list that was used to generate these list items, because this is list based. So here's the default list. This list is created on site collection feature activation in the root site of your site collection. It's called AE Inspired Tiles Items, and it has some default fields in the list. The data is also included when you activate the site collection feature. So when you add a web part to your environment, it is filled with data right away to show you what you can do and get you ready to go. So there is a title, which acts as the label, a tile description, which is the descriptive text underneath. There's a hyperlink that's associated with it, which is optional. There's a background color class. So in this case, it's called Contact. And there's actually 18 classes that are built in that will allow you to change the look and feel of each tile. Real quick, you can look at these. There's some product documentation that's available from the AMREIN web part site. If we scroll down a bit, there's a section called Built-in BG Color CSS Class Names. So here's Contact, that's the way it looks. And there's a whole bunch of other ones that you get some really cool out-of-the-box colors. All you have to do is type the name in, and then that's how it will render. You can also point the background image manually to another image found somewhere. In this case, we're using some Star Wars images. And you can also change the size of the background image. This uses CSS3 background resizing, so your browser has to be compatible for it. Also for you IE users with SharePoint, if you're using SharePoint 2010, the IE mode for the master page is usually by default knocked back to IE 8 mode, so it's not going to work in IE 8 sometimes. Or no, it's just not going to work in IE 8. But fix your master page, people. Come on. And then there's also a tile category field, and this is the information that was extracted, aggregated out, or extracted and aggregated at the top as those filter buttons. Note that each list item can actually have more than one category. So for instance, if I want to change Boba Fett here to be in HR and information technology, I can type that out and do that. And I can use the pipe character as a separator, or I can use a semicolon if I want. Also, the tile category field works with choice fields and taxonomy fields, and both choice and taxonomy you can use single or multiple values, and that works as well. So let's go ahead and change that field. Let's go back over here and refresh the page, and if I choose HR, I should see Boba Fett, and if I do information technology, I now also see Boba Fett. So that's how that works. And he's not in accounting, so he shouldn't show up at all, and sure enough, he's not. Great. And let's see, anything else on that site, on that list? Nope, that was it. So like I said, this is the default list that comes with the site. With the web part, you can create a new list at any time you want and point the web part at it. We'll see that in a minute how that works. let's look at the web part properties. Edit the web part properties. We choose AMREIN settings, and here we go. We enter the license key. By default, there is no license key entered, and it'll work for 30 days. It'll work, and after 30 days, it'll start annoying you with a JavaScript alert that you cannot disable. And the only way you can get rid of that alert is either by removing the web part from the page or purchasing a license and adding it in here. But there's also a couple other options on how to add the license to your farm instead of adding it to every single web part, but you can check the product documentation for that. You specify the list name of where your tiles are coming from. In this case, it's using the out-of-box one, the AE Inspired Tiles items. If this web part was in a site that's not the root site of the site collection, for instance in some sort of subsite, then you need to specify the site server relative URL of where that tiles items list can be found. So in this case, if you look at the URL, it's sites/goal-therm. If you were in a subsite right now, you would need to specify this if the list is not in the same site as the web part page itself. You can point it at different lists, and we'll see how that works in a little bit, but right now it's the default one. You could point a custom CSS file here by entering a full URL, and that you can use that to change the look and feel of the web part, the tile colors, etc. Or you can enter in CSS directly right here. For instance, if you want to change a span to have a color which is red, that's how you would do it. And you can enter a whole bunch of stuff here, one after another, but let's not do that right now. The label of each tile will be found in this field name. By default, it's title. The description will be found in this field name, which is the tile description. Please note that these are internal field names in each list, not the display names, so you have to be careful about that. For instance, they shouldn't have spaces in them. If they have a space in them, they're probably doing it wrong, because the space would usually be changed with some sort of weird, like x2000x, something like that, weirdness. But anyway, these are internal field names. You can do a Google search on how to figure that one out. That's not too terrible. The filter field name. This is these are the aggregated filter categories at the top. This is the field where those values will be found and extracted from. And this is the hyperlink where it'll be found. A couple options. Do you want to open the hyperlink in a new window? And do you want to show that little arrow if there's a hyperlink present? You can change the sorting. You can change the sorting direction. You could specify which field names, the color class, the image URL, and the image size will be found. And then I have an option here of turning on assign random tile color. So every time this page refreshes, the tile colors are going to be randomized. You don't have to use this. I just thought it was kind of cool to include, and it makes it nice and colorful and fun. You can also do a list where clause field name and a list where clause field value if you want it to only, for instance, show categories of or return specific list items from a list instead of all the list items in the list. And for instance, if I want to return only list items that have accounting as the tile category, I would type in as the field name as tile category and the field value is accounting. So it would be tile category and accounting. I hit OK and refresh, and now you see it only returns accountants. The accounting people, and then notice too that since there's no other category, it strips out the category completely since it's not needed. It wouldn't be helpful just to show a show all category when there's no other category. So let's undo that and refresh, and now we have it back. All right, so let's see some of these other options that we have here. So this is number 3. Let's look at example number 4. This web part is special because it's pointed to special for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's special because it's pointed to a list that's not the default list that came with the web part. This is a list that I created called My Insp Tiles. So let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick. This is just a plain old custom list in SharePoint. I added a whole bunch of single line of text fields manually to it with these field names. It doesn't have to be these field names, but I just kind of choose to use these field names that are the same with the out-of-box ones. And then I have some options here. I use tile category 4, which is taxonomy managed metadata field type. I allow multiple values, and you can see in the region here that there's multiple values in here that could be chosen. So let's go ahead and look at this data. So you can see here that this item is tile category 4, Balkans and Eastern Europe. So this is Fred. So if I look here, and let's go ahead and refresh the page. If I do other Europe, Fred does not show up. But if I do Balkans, he shows up, and Eastern Europe, and get them all back. And European, he will not show up. So you can see how a single tile can be in multiple categories at the same time, and you can see how the web part works with taxonomy and managed metadata fields nicely. And this is also, like I said, pointed to a different list, the my tiles list, the custom list. What I did was I had to configure it real quick so that the web part knows to look for those field names. So it's using title still. Tile category 4 is the filter field this time. Notice I didn't even supply a description because it's optional and I don't need it. I didn't put a hyperlink one in there either. It's sorted by title. It's looking for background color class. And I did something else with color class here that was interesting. You can see here that Fred is a contact background image, but he's also red. So let's go ahead and take a look at Fred again. And if I edit his list item, we could see that what I did here was to get that, I typed in contact space Apple. And you can use multiple class names at the same time, and the styles will be added just in order. So Apple background color red, overrode, or overwritten, or however you want to say that, override the contact blue background that you get with the out-of-box styles. And once again, the out-of-box styles are over here. You can see contact is blue, blue with a white person, and Apple is red. Let's see here. That was number 4. Let's look at number 5. Number 5 is a great example that Inspired Tiles works. The web part can be added to the page multiple times, and each web part can be configured uniquely to point at different lists with different settings, and the filtering works independently from each other. Let's look at number 6. 6 is a neat one. So 6 has Inspired Tiles web part pointed at a library, not just a list. So these are actual files, and actually this web part, if we look at it real quick, is pointed at the site pages wiki library that came with this theme site. So if we jump over to site pages real quick, we can see that here's all the pages in the site, or in this library, and I added a custom text field to the list called My Memo, where I can add a description. So for instance, I edited Inspired 6 to have this special description of demo loading files. And if I go back to the demo and look at it, sure enough, Inspired 6 has that description, whereas the other ones do not have a description. Let's take a look at how I configured this to make it work like this. So I pointed it at the site pages library. I left this blank since we're in the same site as the list is found. The label field name is the internal field name of file leaf ref. That's where the file name is saved in SharePoint in the lists for files. I added the My Memo field name is where I could find the descriptions for each tile. And the href field name is file ref, which is the server relative URL of where the file is located. And what this does is that when you click on each tile, it'll jump to that URL of where the file is. Hence, your browser will attempt to open that SharePoint file as if you clicked on it out of box. So it might open it in a new window. It might open it in a client application. It might just navigate to the page. It depends on how which browser and how it's set up and what file type it is. But that's how you can do it. And I'm sorting by file leaf ref, which is again the file name. And I'm assigning random colors because I like that. It looks pretty cool. So let's go ahead and refresh the page. And sure enough, if I want to click on, for instance, Inspired 5, I open up Inspired 5. If I go back to 6, and if I click on Inspired 4, I go to Inspired 4. So it's a great way of making a view into a SharePoint list. of files. I'm sorry, SharePoint library of files. And let's go ahead and take a look at how we can add this web part to a page. So let me go ahead and delete the web part from this page, edit the page, insert a web part, pick AMREIN Engineering from the categories, choose the Inspired Tiles web part, hit add, and you can see that by adding it to the page, it immediately pulls default settings, and it immediately pulls the default items from that AE Inspired Tiles list items, or Inspired Tiles items list. So let's go ahead and look at what you get out of the box. So there's the list, title, tile description, category, so you see all the out-of-the-box settings. So as soon as you add to the page, you should be humming along and see data right away and start working with it. You can see that the out-of-box setting does not randomize the colors, so let's go ahead and turn that feature on real quick because I love that feature. Hit OK, save, there it is. There we go. So make sure Boba Fett is still in those two. Yep, because we made the change before, and that's how it works. Alright, let's take a look at one last thing. When you activate the site collection feature, it also creates a library in the root site of your site collection where the site assets basically that this web part uses. So like I said, 98% of this app is JavaScript and CSS, and it's all front end. And instead of burying it in some sort of module or hidden folder or wherever else and obfuscating it and everything else, I leave it open to all of you to make changes and make it your own if you like. So if you open this library, you'll see the images folder which contains the Star Wars images that if you want to play with. And it also contains a folder called V1, and inside you'll find the app CSS file, the app JavaScript file, and some utility plugins that the app uses as well. jQuery, the Isotope plugin, and a little proprietary in-house helper file. So if you want to make changes to how the web part actually functions, you can download app.js to your desktop and make some changes and upload it back. And if you want to change how it look and feel, you can download the app.css file and to your desktop and edit it and upload it back. And note that you'll have to do this in any site collection, not site collection. So if you have lots and lots of site collections, this can get kind of crazy. But if you only have the web part in a whole bunch of different pages in a single site or multiple sites inside of a site collection, you only have to do this once because the web part gets it looks for all of its data in this one place in each site collection. Beware that, of course, you can very easily break the web part doing this. If you do break it, it's okay. Just delete all the files from this folder and then deactivate your site collection feature and then reactivate your site collection feature, and it'll fill this library back up with the default items that were included in the WSP file that you added originally. Also note that in future releases, if you do upgrade this product later on with new releases, as bugs are reported or new features are added, when the changed files will not be in V1. They'll be in whatever version it is. So this might have V1.2, V1.3, etc. in the future. If you make your changes to the old files, they will not be overwritten, but the web part will not look at your files anymore when the web part is upgraded in the future. It'll look at the new folder names, which will be V11, V12, etc., etc. So if you do make changes and make it your own, that's great, it's fantastic, but I can only help you so far. So if I have to make changes to the source code and update it, then you're going to lose your changes. Not lose your changes necessarily, your files will be untouched, but your changes will be ignored and you'll have to reintegrate your changes. I'll try to minimize the number of changes I have to make to the code so that you won't lose your changes, but I don't make any promises because what you do is on you. Alright, well, that's it. I hope you enjoy the web part. If you need any additional help, send an email through support. Please don't be afraid to read the product documentation found on the website. The web part page where you purchased this should have a link to this site, and there's plenty of documentation here and steps and everything else. So enjoy.